Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spark. My name is Teri Snelgrove, and I work as a producer at the BC and Yukon studio of the National Film Board of Canada. And today I am joined by Will McCormack and Michael Govier, who collaborated on an amazing animated short that's in the festival called If Anything Happens, I Love You. So first of all, thank you so much for being here today. And congratulations on a beautiful film. It is profound and moving. And to me, it was so reflective of this kind of terrible, beautiful time in which we live. Really great work.
Thank you so much. We absolutely appreciate it. It is, yeah, I feel it is very reflective of this moment because there's a lot of grief going on right now, and the film deals with deep levels of grief and dealing in what grief looks like.
Yeah, I was curious about that. I was curious about how you arrived at this particular story because when I started watching the film, I didn't know very much about it at all. And I obviously figured out fairly quickly that we see these two parents dealing with the loss of a child. And I didn't anticipate what happens in the film. I didn't see that coming. I thought, oh, there's been an accident or, an illness or something like that. So when that moment came, I actually gasped. I was watching the film and it just, frankly, it gutted me. So I'd love to know a little bit more about how the exploration of grief led you to this particular story.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're delighted to talk to you. The original sort of kernel of this film came from Michael's brain and heart, and that was the idea of these shadows and the souls. So that was sort of our diving board into this story, that those shadows and souls would sort of be the representation or manifestation of feelings that people couldn't reach or summon during times of grief. And then, unfortunately, organically, we kept reading about school shootings and how they happen again and again and again and again. And we felt like animation was the best way to attack and wrestle with this type of grief that feels truly inconceivable, but all too common, but also insurmountable. And we talked to a lot of parents who've dealt with this type of tragedy. And we were really inspired by them and their ability to endure that and to be there for one another in times of grief. But it's the story sort of happened in building stages, where the first sort of concept of the story came from Michael, and he pitched me this idea about these beautiful shadows about grief, because often in grief, we can't reach the thing that we need to do because we're in too much pain. And these shadows felt like such a beautiful representation of that. So that was the build from, that was sort of the construction of the story. And then it sort of organically happened that we arrived at the girl in the school because of what was going on in the world, tragically.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the shadows because they're such a beautiful device. You've made this film without using any dialogue, which I also really appreciate, because I feel that, animation that doesn't deal with dialogue has a greater, more universal sort of reach, right? We're not relying on language to convey exposition, etc. So I'm wondering, so you started with the shadows, and then animation obviously was the form in which to explore this, right? Because I know that you both work in live action as well. So talk a little bit, if you could, both about your experience with animation, and I think people would love to hear a little bit about that.
I've been an animation fan from when I was a little kid. Like, I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I love the storytelling devices that you can do. And I love the fact that different kinds of stories you can tell and stories that you can't tell in live action. And I think ours is a clear example of that. It's like, this would not be a live action film. This needs to be animation to have that discussion and that greater empathy for the moment, because you get so pulled into these characters. We've had people say like, "Oh my gosh, they're just so real." Because you really are feeling that grief, you're really feeling their loss, you're also feeling their hope, and you're also feeling the human spirit, you're feeling this love. So there's a lot of huge emotions that you're feeling through it that can only be achieved with animation. And yeah, I've always just loved it. I'm in so blessed to be working with Will and also with Young Renault, who was our animation director. And she had just graduated from Cal Arts when we met her. And she is just a genius. And it was just a blessing that all of us met and started working together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Will, please.
No, I was gonna echo what Michael said, and to your point, we're proud that the movie has no dialogue, because we feel like we achieved, we were able to tell the story without any words, which, as a screenwriter, you're always looking for parsimony and how can I do this just through a moving image, and we kept cutting it and making it leaner and leaner. And Michael and I always had sort of a North Star with this film, which was like, anything that didn't need to be in a frame, let's get rid of it and see if we can go for the most parsimonious, lean version of it, because it really felt like that was a representation of how lonely and barren grief can feel. That's sort of like desolation. So, the film Father and Daughter was a really big influence to us, and Young Renault was the perfect woman to animate this film. I mean, she just got the story from her first drawings. We knew that she was the right woman for the job. But I also worked at Pixar for a couple of years, and I've been like a fan of animated movies my whole life. But then working at Pixar, I got to work with Pete Docter and Andrew Stanton and Michael Arndt, and I got to work with all these guys who were heroes of mine, and I learned a lot about storytelling from them. So it was great to have Michael as a partner, as a co-director, because he really inspired me visually. And we were a good team, I think, because we bring different skill sets to the story, but we were always sort of aligned on the same path, even though sometimes we got there in different ways.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I think you're absolutely right in that animation created this opportunity for this degree of delicacy with in terms of the handling of the story, and that for me happened throughout. The animation is itself is stunning, and I would like to talk a little bit more about how you arrived at some of the techniques. But I really enjoyed things like the use of negative space, because anyone who's gone through grief can understand that immense well of despair and loneliness, and it feels like you are all alone. And I loved the fact that the parents at the beginning of the film are so distanced, and there's nothing in any of the frames that doesn't have to be there, right? Which is just stunning. I mean, it enables, for me, it enabled me to like literally fall into the film in a really kind of profound way. So can you talk about the decisions that that you made and the conversations that you had with Young Renault in terms of making decisions around negative space and the use of the watercolor technique on the textured paper, which again is so beautiful and so evocative and fitting for this particular story?
Yeah, the style and the design was a lot of it just going back to like strip it down less and less and less from every frame. And then you'll see in the shots, like when we go into like the bedroom, you'll see like the camera will pan across and you'll see like a table, a chair, the bed, this like the child's room. And then as the camera pans back, everything on the side falls off and it's just the bed where the parents go and sit. And so like this design is like, we'll have an impression of something, and then it will just fade away. And using the negative space was a huge thing we did, kind of like calligraphy almost, where it's like the white space with the black, it means just as much as the black. And working with Young, it's like we kind of, we all kind of found the style together, but we knew we wanted to be this minimal and we wanted to kind of have this rough animation look, this kind of scratchy design. And then with the watercolors, we started first with kind of like, we thought maybe we wanted charcoal backgrounds, and then we moved to more watercolors because we kind of liked that, the feeling of motion of water in the deep fields. So it kind of had these back plates that kind of, and like, you could go, it's like, is it water? Is it tears? Is this? And also letting the backgrounds bleed into the people. So it doesn't have to be as clean as you just see like in the end of the film, where you'll see like the background sun is glowing on them, but also glowing from in them. So we kind of played with this concept of backgrounds bleeding into shadow and into the characters.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, we also really enjoyed when the daughter takes the souls into the record and through the sort of waltz of memory, we sort of enjoyed also making that impressionistic, in that, that's sort of how memory works. You don't remember everything in the room, but you remember the spirit of that moment and how you felt. So that was also just a really fun thing to explore. Like, what does this moment feel like rather than what did it actually look like, And that was also sort of something that we threaded through it, which was really actually just fun to explore.
Yeah, it works so well, because I think, without ever stating it, we as a viewer, we really feel that sort of the fluidity of memory and the way things sort of don't have hard edges, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the softness and the liquidity and all of that. So I applaud you for engaging in that way, because it works so well. What was the process like in working with? You said that Young Rano had recently graduated from Cal Arts. Will, you had seen a film that she had previously made. Did you approach her? And then what happened? Like, how long did it take? What was the sort of process of bringing this film to life?
We met with a couple people, but really the moment we met her, it was creative bliss. I mean, it was the moment where we all I felt like, Michael, wouldn't you feel like that was the moment where the project really came to life?
100%. I mean, Will and I have been writing it. We've got the script. We're trying to find, we need this other, partner to team with. And when she showed up, the first thing out of her mouth is she goes, "I love this script." She goes, "This script reminds me of Father and Daughter." And we were just like, that's kind of was a North Star as far as tone and feeling when we first started. Like, if you had to think of something slightly similar, and it was just like, oh my gosh. And it was like, we called her that, evening or afternoon and said, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And she's like, "Absolutely." And it was just on, and it was just kind of perfect. And then, we went into boards and we started boarding, and then we went into animation, and it's just this little scrappy team. I mean, it was just, we had 3 animators in total, and then we had 2 other storyboard artists, and then us, and it was just sitting around a kitchen table making a film. So it was just this scrappy little group.
And our producer, Marianne Garger, has been working in animation for 30 years. And so to work with someone who's that seasoned and who knows the ins and outs of the pipeline and how to get everything done. I mean, Michael and I had spent a long time on the script. I mean, almost a year, because we knew that we were going to have a lot of money, and we knew we wanted to get it perfectly right. And also, this subject matter is very delicate, and we wanted to be scrupulous with how we wrote it and what we wanted to say. So, but looking back on it now, I know, but I don't know if I knew at the time how truly incredible Marianne was as a producer. And we were so lucky to meet her. And my agent, Kia Kiadin at UTA, introduced us to her. And it was also just one, you get a little lucky on movies sometimes too.
Yeah.
And you can get a little unlucky on movies sometimes too.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
we got really lucky in meeting Young Rand and Marianne.
Yeah. I mean, I watched it more than once, and it's the kind of film that, the takeaway the first time you watch it is so emotionally rewarding. But when you go back and watch and rewatch, more details come to life, and you notice more. And I believe that is definitely a testament to the time that you took to actually craft the script. And then once you were in animation, once the boards were done and you had an animatic, how long did the animation process itself actually take? And I wanted to also congratulate you on having a team of all women animators, which is fantastic. Bravo.
Thank you. That was a goal we wanted to, I mean, one of the goals of the film for all of us was to provide an opportunity where people haven't had it. And this was a goal. And we have a female composer, we have a huge group of wonderful women, and a lot of young women just out of college who need a break, and sometimes you don't get a break that well. You get like a lower level break, and you have to maybe grind it out for too long. So we gave a lot of people, and I personally feel like we've launched their careers. Young Renault is now already working on a Jamie Foxx animated film.
Wow.
So it's like she's doing very well, and we're very proud of her.
Yeah.
So she's a star. She's just a star. So it's so satisfying. That was actually kind of a funny thing. When we were working from the beginning, we had all these young artists, and Bill and I kept hiring them, and they all kept getting cherry picked away from us by bigger companies. Like they would get hired at Netflix. I mean, they get Nickelodeon, they get hired at Warner Brothers. And so then it was kind of like, well, I guess we have great taste in these wonderful artists, but also they're leaving us,
They don't even take our calls anymore.
Yeah. We're pitching to them. So we're hoping it will work out.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. The other thing that I really appreciated was the minimal use of spot color in the film, because we it's primarily monochromatic, and then we see the splash of blue in the T-shirt and on the side of the house, and then the only time we're ever really invited to see sort of a full palette of color. And even then, it's somewhat monochromatic. Are of course when they're visiting what I assume is the Grand Canyon, and then of course when the girl is born, and then at the end with the son. So can you talk about the journey of making those kinds of decisions, which were just once again really enhance the emotional journey of the film in my mind?
I think we talked a lot about color and the use of color, because we knew we wanted to have, it kind of feels like grief, where it's just very muted, monochromatic. There's little splashes of color, which is kind of like splashes of feeling, and then when we go back to the memory, the color starts to return, but the color is a little distorted. The color's a little off because it's still a memory, and it's a memory that's still filtered through present day. Like they're still in this grief moment. So the memory, even though the memory was wonderful, isn't vibrant Technicolor. It's still got this faded quality because that still exists. And that was something we wanted to always try. And early on, when we thought, oh, maybe it would be more color, we realized it was just way too much, and it was pulling away from that story. And so it was as little color as we could. It was the same kind of thing. What we don't need, we don't need. And we would just drop out. And but the color represented that emotional states of memory through present day grief, I guess, is kind of what the thought was for that section.
Beautiful. It's so effective. I want to pop back to something that we had started talking about, but once you started the animation process, what was the timeline on that? How long did it take what appears to be a very small team of animators to actually bring the film to fruition?
We launched animation in roughly April of 2019, and we finished basically by November, December of that same year, as far as locking all of animation.
Wow.
And then We had a wonderful editor, Peter Ettinger. He'd been working with us as well. He's done Smallfoot, some wonderful, huge works in DreamWorks for a long time, and he helped cut. He cut this, edited it, and then we went into post. We kind of finished right around February, top of March. We're just kind of done.
Mhm.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. We do animation at the National Film Board in the studio in which I work, and really that is a pretty tight timeline that you created this film in, as we all know. Um, the other thing I really appreciated in the film, so there were two moments. The moment for me when we enter the school and we see the American flag above the doors was the moment that I knew what was going to happen. And that was the moment in the first viewing that I gasped because I thought, oh no, here we are. And then, it was, I was gutted basically. But then when I watched the credits, I noticed the credit for the Los Angeles Children's Orchestra with all of the names and ages of the players in the orchestra, and it got me again. And I thought, they played "Beautiful Dreamer," and in the film, I wasn't aware that that song was being played by a youth orchestra. I assumed that there were a bunch of adults sitting around, and that's what we were hearing. And then when I saw them named and when I saw their ages and thought about all of the kids, particularly in America, who go to school, some of whom never come home at ages that are way too young for such an event to have happened. It just got me again. So I was already a mess, and then I was a puddle on the floor when I connected that dot. Can you talk about that decision to use the youth orchestra at that point?
Yeah, I think it was just I became a father also during the making of this film too, and I think one of the goals of the film is to denormalize this tragedy and to not make it a statistic, but to make it a reality. These are not statistics; they're children. And I think that because of the normalcy of which it happens in society, I think that there's a little bit of numbness to it because it's become so frequent. And that's a hard thing to say, but I think it's true. And I think that bringing in kids to play instruments and talking to parents who've lost children and making this film, this is also, I think, what is great about storytelling is that you're not looking at something in totality, but you're looking at one specific family's journey through this horrific tragedy. So every opportunity, I think, to make this personal and intimate was one of our goals. And that was also something that just felt right for the film, that because this is what happens to kids, that kids should be a part of the filmmaking. So it was really, I think, in an overall effort to just personalize this story as much as possible. And that is, not just our story. That's the power of any story, is when you really feel it. And it doesn't feel like a topic or something you read about, but it feels like something that is lived in and that you can feel and touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to add to that, Michael?
No, I just think, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, all of the artists and the people who worked on this, they were all, younger than Will and I, and they grew up with, those drills in school. Like Will and I didn't have that experience as far as like active shooter drills and all these other kind of things. Like we only had fire drills, and Will and I are both 87. So obviously it was a while ago. But, to say they, and also talking to these young people and children and kids and of all ages. And once you hit this certain threshold, the experiences dramatically change as far as what it was being in school. And it was a big kind of moment for us to go, oh my gosh, this is such an impactful thing. And now it's so normal. They're like, oh yeah, we have to do this thing, and we lock the doors and we pile up chairs, and we're just like, oh my gosh, this is the farthest experience that we ever had going to school. And that's why we wanted this discussion to get a little greater about this.
Yeah, I mean,
One of our artists was at the garlic. There was a shooting at a garlic festival in California. I don't know if you remember that one.
no, I don't.
There's this garlic festival, and I think in Central California. And Michelle, one of our artists, was there, and she left right before the shooting. But it was something that happened during production, and this has become, it gets really real, and everyone knows someone, and not just school shootings, because this, our film aims to wrap its arms around all types of violence. And one of the things that has been meaningful to us is people have said, I didn't lose someone in a school shooting, but I did lose someone to gun violence, or I did lose someone this year. And it felt like that grief. And in grief, the thing that we can do for one another is be there for one another, which I think the film tries to posit. But, that happened during production, that one of our artists was at that garlic festival and left 5 minutes before the shooter began shooting, So that was also something that landed on us in a really real way, that, oh, this is not just a film we're making. This is life,
Yeah, I mean, as a Canadian, it's not my experience. We don't have school shootings, and not that there hasn't been gun violence in Canada, because there has, but it's on such a different scale. But every time there's an incident in the U.S., the ripple effect up here emotionally is really, really profound. And in fact, there's an artist and author, I don't know if you know him, named Doug Copeland, who's Canadian. He's from Vancouver. He wrote Generation X, and he's created installations and stuff. And one of the installations that I heard him speak about once, I didn't see the actual installation. I unfortunately can't remember the name, but essentially he rebuilds a classroom. And in the classroom, there are no people at the desks. There are only knapsacks and purses, and the installation, the sound that you hear are the sound of cell phones going off.
Wow.
As parents are trying to text their teens, et cetera, et cetera. And if I recall correctly, I think he also merged that with the sound, garden sounds as well. And it was really amazing when he did it. And again, as a Canadian artist, it's not central to our experience, but I think is indicative of the impact that events in the US have on us in Canada as well, right? Mm-hmm. I'm curious to know what's next for you two. Are you going to continue this amazing collaboration? And if so, what are you thinking about?
Is this where we break up? Is this the awkward breakup moment?
Please, no.
Surprise. No. I absolutely love working with Will. He's an incredible storyteller and just a genius storyteller. Like, working with him for these last, handful of years has just been incredible. I feel like I've got like my MFA in, screenwriting and storytelling, and it's just been such a pleasure. And I feel like we have a wonderful collaboration, and we're going to continue to make, our next goal is to make a feature animated film. And so we've got a couple of things in development that we're kind of working on and building out. And so we will continue currently, hopefully.
That is super exciting.
Yeah, I loved working with Michael and Marianne, and cannot wait to build another movie with them. And we have a couple feature ideas that we're working on right now, but also we created a company for this film called All Good, and we want to also create more short films and other opportunities for filmmakers to try to make movies that move the needle and say something too.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because as we know, there are so many emerging filmmakers in this world who don't get those opportunities right out of the gate. So again, congratulations to both of you for creating those pathways and those opportunities. I'm wondering if there's anything that I didn't ask you about that you would like to say.
I thought I wanted to follow up on something you said earlier as far as the rewatching value, and we've heard this so many times that people watch it and they have a very emotional and a very powerful experience the first time, but then going back they start to hit all these other tones with it. And I think it's same with me and Will. And when we watch it, different moments really hit you as far as like where you feel this pull of emotion. And I always think that's really interesting. So I would encourage, if people have already watched it now, go watch it again and kind of see what you see after that second pass. Because we always want to make a film that people will watch more than once, and keeps giving back. And I think we have achieved that to an extent that it is rewatchable.
100%. And for anyone out there in the Spark verse, if you've got a pass, I believe that you can rewatch films. I hope I'm not telling a lie, but I would definitely recommend a second viewing of this. Will, for you, is there anything that you would like to add?
I'll echo that. I mean, I just watched the film again last night, and I just love the moment, and we intended this, but I've forgotten it, and it occurred to me in a new way. But Michael, when the cat is waiting by the door, waiting by her door, it just like, I don't know, it just broke my heart. I think pets are sort of in tune and sort of like sorcerers in a way, and it's just the fact that the cat was there waiting for her. Just landed on me in a new way. And it is fun with this film. And I also think it's a tribute to Young's work that through repeated viewings, it does continue to give back in ways that, surprise us. And we made the film. So I'm excited for people to see it. And hopefully, this is meant to be an elegy on grief, and grief is a hard thing that to reckon with. And I don't think we talk about it enough, but I think that, Michael and I have both been through loss in our own life, and the making of this film was really healing to us too. So to have it come out in the world and to be in your festival and talk to you, it means a lot. Truly, it means everything.
Well, you've made an amazing film, and I hope everybody at Spark sees it more than once. And I sincerely look forward to hearing about some of the projects you've got in development right now, particularly the animated feature. I'm very excited. I have so much respect, like big props to both of you. Thank you so much for taking the time, and everybody go watch it.
Thank you so much. We love being with you, and thank you for such an insightful, thoughtful, astute watching of the film. You really, I know that you felt it and saw it, so that means a lot to us.
Well, thank you. I could only see it because you laid it out for me. So well done. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.